Bigfoot does not exist.
We're flying into a hole in the sky. There's nothing I can do to stop it. It's sucking us in.
The limits of the third dimension must be transcended by negating the forces of duality and ascending into unity.
The Creepy and Weird Podcast, brought to you by Hippie Steve.
Welcome to Creepy and Weird. I am your host, Hippie Steve. In today's episode, what can I say, folks? It's going to be a very, very special one. It's going to be our first ever interview. Let me take you a little stroll down memory lane. About 2011, I am studying names like Robert Anton Wilson, Tim Leary, Terrence McKenna, and this individual's name popped up quite a bit when I was doing my research, and I've read quite a number of his books. He is a man known by the name of David J. Brown, who is a writer and interviewer, and his books include Mavericks of the Mind and Frontiers of Psychedelic Consciousness. And needless to say, he's been a huge influence on me. So let's go over to our interview with him, our first ever interview. And BMAC, cameraman, zoom it. All right, David, thank you very much for being on the Creepy and Weird podcast. There's a lot to talk about. So before I begin, let me just break down your upcoming book. That is the Psychedelics in the Coming Singularity, Conversations with Duncan Trussell, Rupert Sheldrake, Hamilton Morris, I'm sorry. I'm a big fan of his, believe it or not. Graham Hancock and Grant Morrison. You want to just give us a brief synopsis of that book? Any way you can plug
Sure.
it?
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. It's a pleasure to be here with you, Steve. Thanks for having me on your show. So my new book, Psychedelics and the Coming Singularity. This is it right here. It's a collection of interviews that I've done. It's my seventh collection of interviews. Actually, I've done. Oh my goodness, I can't believe I've done seven collections of interviews now. But this particular collection focuses on the interface between the advancement of artificial intelligence and psychedelics. The singularity, which is referred to in the title, is a term that's been popularized by a computer scientist, Ray Kurzweil, and the term originally comes from physics. It refers to the point before the Big Bang, or the point in the center of a black hole where all the known laws of physics break down and no further predictions can be made from that. So Kurzweil and others, he wasn't the first one to do it, but he was the one who basically popularized it, have sort of in a poetic way applied this to the advancement of artificial intelligence. He started making predictions back in the 1990s, and with his book, The Age of Spiritual Machines, and has been uncanny in his the accuracy of his predictions with how artificial intelligence has been progressing. Most people didn't think it would be where it is today. Back in the 90s, when he was first talking about it, other computer scientists were saying, well, maybe this could happen where it could reach, as intelligent as human beings or greater. But that's not going to happen for at least another century or so. And he's been kind of right on target with that. Everybody's been kind of amazed with ChatGPT and the other Bing and the other word chat programs that have just been boggling people's minds. And we're on track for it to reach what's called AGI, artificial general intelligence, by around 2029. And that'll mean that it'll be as intelligent as smart as any one human being. and it'll keep progressing and advancing and redesigning itself to the point where it becomes as intelligent as all human beings combined, and then we'll keep progressing. And that point where it reaches the intelligence of all human beings combined is what Kurzweil terms the singularity, and he projects that to be sometime around, I think it was 2043. Some people think now it's actually going to be sooner because things are happening so fast. But the point is that beyond that, there's no way to predict what happens next when we have computer intelligence that's more intelligent than all human beings combined. So that's one of the topics that I explore and ask everybody who I've interviewed in this book about, and how that interfaces with with psychedelic, the psychedelic renaissance that we're now experiencing. I mean, for many years, psychedelics, as you know, were demonized and criminalized and ridiculed and ignored by the mainstream media, and they're finally getting the respect and that they deserve, and they're everywhere in the mass media now, and I think that they're great. I worked with MAPS for years, and I think that they're really helpful for all the things that they're being reported about, which is to help with post-traumatic stress disorder and obsessive compulsive disorder and end of life anxiety and all these other types of psychiatric and psychological and mental disorders and problems that they've shown to be have really great treatment value for. But what I think is the single most important thing that psychedelics have to offer right now at this particular junction in our history is the fact that they increase the environmental awareness, and as a result, ecological consciousness, and they raise ecological awareness. And during this, intense time with the climate crisis, I don't think anything is more important than raising ecological awareness. So I think that, specifically ayahuasca and magic mushrooms and the plant medicines have this tremendous efficacy to raise our ecological awareness. And I think this is going to dovetail with the rise in artificial intelligence, because I think without that type of heightened awareness, it's not really going to be of much value, and it could be very dangerous. So I think the interface between those two, the up and coming psychedelic renaissance and the advancements in artificial intelligence, is what we have to look forward to, and I'm very optimistic about this. And this was something that I discussed with all the different people that I interviewed in the new book.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I am fascinated by AI. There's terrifying aspects, but I'm also fascinated as well. I mean, it'll be, before you know it, you'll have like an AI therapist, which I think will be fascinating.
Yeah, you already can pretty much. I mean, they're already up to that level. They're about at the level of about a college or graduate student pretty much right now. They're at that about level of intelligence. So, and they're advancing incredibly rapidly. So, yep.
Yeah. Speaking of AI, have you ever watched a podcast on YouTube called Dudesy with Will Sasso from Mad TV?
Not familiar with it. No.
Yeah.
I'll have to check it out.
It's a podcast completely ran by an AI.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It's off the wall.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll be seeing more and more of that. It'll be hard to tell, what's AI and what's not, because AI first of all is going to have to dumb itself down for us to be able to pass the Turing test with it. It already pretty much can. They're already at that level, So for people not to be able to tell it's a computer intelligence that's hosting the show or talking to you, they're going to have to dumb themselves down a little bit to get themselves to our level.
Yeah. Start speaking like a Zoomer.
Yeah.
So one name that just popping out to me as a list of all the people you're interviewing for your latest book is a man I'm completely fascinated by, and that's Rupert Sheldrake. He's a man you've been working with for quite some time, right?
Yeah. Well, Rupert, tremendous, brilliant, amazing man. Rupert, as you know, is a very controversial British biologist, who's most famous for his development of the morphic field theory or morphogenetic field theory, which he's which he's written about in a number of his books. And I was very fortunate to be able to work with Rupert for 5 years. I did the California-based research for his book, Dogs That Know When Their Owners Are Coming Home, and also the sense of being stared at. Rupert just has so many, brilliant ideas that you know that are really easy to test, but surprisingly, no one has ever tested them before. Like the sense of being stared at. Most people have the feeling that someone's looking at them, and they turn around and they see someone staring at them. And Rupert actually has done, thousands of experiments now where they've demonstrated that there really is people really do have this ability in general, and there's some people have it to a great degree. Um, the work that I focused most with Rupert on, and like I said, I did the research for those two books, and we also wrote 3 scientific papers together, was about unusual animal behavior prior to earthquakes. I did the research in California for that he included in his book, and I did some of the experiments with dogs that can anticipate their owner's arrival in ways that aren't explained easily by conventional science. And the results are just extraordinary. And I mean, many critics have have said that maybe that the dogs don't really have psychic powers, that maybe what they're responding to is that the animal recognizes that people are coming home the same time of the day, or maybe it's the smell of the person, or maybe it's the sound of their car or the sound of a TV show that plays at a particular time that day, and that's why they tend to wait by the door or in the window before someone comes home. So what Rupert's done is he's separated and tested for each one of these different variables separately to control for them. So we've had people come home, and we had when I did the experiments, I used a pager, and I had people go out and come back at random times, and they never knew what time they were going to be buzzed to come back and begin their journey home. So we controlled for the time of the day. We controlled for the way we had people come home so that they were going the opposite way the wind was blowing, so it couldn't have been their sense of smell. We had people come home and in taxis, so it wasn't the sound of their vehicle. We even had people come home in wheelchairs, so it wasn't the sound of their footsteps. And we still got significant results that conventional science is at a loss to explain. So I was really thrilled to be able to work with Rupert. I stayed with him for a month at his place in London, and just really tremendous inspiration and very important work for me to be able to do. And in my latest book, I was able to have a conversation with him about the topics that I just talked about, and bring everyone up to date on his latest research.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to the psychic phenomenon of animals, pets specifically, I mean, I've had some jaw-dropping experience. I don't know if you got a chance to see the picture I sent to you on one of the email exchanges we had.
Yeah.
But I'm just taking a random picture of what we'll just call a smoking apparatus, some thick glass, and I don't know why I was doing it. And there's my dog, and he's been gone since 2022, and this was back in May.
Wow, that's just amazing. That's incredible.
And I don't know what made me decide, I'm going to take this picture, because I don't do stuff like that. And it's just, my wife and I were looking at it, we're like, is that our dog? And we show it to people all the time, and we're just like, that looks like your dog in the picture. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, the bonds that we form with our pets are just uncanny. And, I think, I don't think it's any question that most pet owners, feel that they have a psychic or a telepathic connection with their animal that not only is present while they're alive, but also present after they die. So it's not that surprising really, but it is amazing to hear these kind of stories. I believe that Rupert has actually been doing collecting some stories about people that have had kind of experiences like yours with the animal after the animal's passed away into the next world, and they still maintain some kind of contact with it. Certainly, it's very common in dreams. Many people dream about their pets after they've died, and they feel like they're really in communication with them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that's fascinating. We could do a whole podcast on that subject for sure, but we definitely want to move on. Personally, for me, probably my favorite book that you've ever written is Dreaming Wide Awake, book that you wrote about lucid dreaming.
Yeah.
And I just want to talk about lucid dreaming. I find it fascinating. I've had semi lucid dreams before, but nothing to the extent that you've had. You just break down quickly, like what a lucid dream is in comparison to a regular dream?
Yeah, sure. I mean, during a regular dream, we don't recognize that we're dreaming. We actually think that what's happening is happening in waking reality. And usually, then when we wake up, we're like, "Oh, yeah, it was just a dream, right?" And we don't know that we're dreaming during the time. During a lucid dream, you actually wake up in the dream. And you know that you're dreaming. You recognize that you're dreaming. You can look all around and just be astonished and mesmerized by the world, the detail in it, and you have complete access to your waking world memories. You know that your physical body is lying in bed, somewhere in this other dimension where you don't know, but it's that your physical body is there, and then you have the ability to not to control the dream, but to influence what happens to a great degree. There's still some other kind of mysterious intelligence that's orchestrating the dream, but you can fly in the dream, you can have sex with whoever you want. You can have incredible conversations, deep philosophical conversations with the other dream characters about dreams, and it's an extraordinary experience. And it's a learnable skill that anyone could learn how to do if they practice the techniques that I outline in my book. And and I'd be happy to talk about some of those techniques if you like. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, for me, what I find the hardest just to even get into lucid dreaming is just regular dreams. Sometimes I'll go through long spurts where I have a very hard time recalling my dreams. What
Mhm.
tips that you have for somebody like myself that, just to try to remember your dreams better?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, the thing that I find best for helping to improve my dream recall is to keep a dream journal right next to my bed, and to when I first get up, wake up from a night's sleep, I lie there usually for a few minutes without opening my eyes. Opening my eyes tends to make the dreams kind of dissipate. Um, so what I do is I, lay there, think about it for a couple minutes, try to recall whatever I can, and then immediately open up my dream journal and start writing down whatever I can remember. And even if I can just remember the tiniest little snippet of something, at the end of the dream, I find that by writing that one little snippet down, it can start the flow, and you sort of remember other snippets that are connected to it. And the more that you start doing this, the more you start writing down your dreams, the more your recall seems to improve. It's just like the more attention that you pay to it, the more attention it pays to you. There's kind of this back and forth, and your dreams kind of recognize that they want to be remembered. That there's a part of your brain that wants to communicate with you in this kind of symbolic way. So to keeping that dream journal and really being disciplined, if you wake up in the middle of the night, it's a little difficult to discipline yourself sometimes if you wake up in the middle of the night and you think, oh, I remember a little bit of my dream, but I'll write it down in the morning. That usually doesn't work, because if you wait till the morning, it's usually gone. So it's worth it to turn on the light. And if you don't want to write it down in a dream journal, just having using an audio recorder on your phone, and you can transcribe it, later into the journal. But I think that, just really paying attention to them and making an effort to write down or record them right after you wake up, and doing this every single time after you wake up, is probably the best technique that I know of for increasing dream recall.
Absolutely. A big part, to my understanding, with lucid dreaming is going through the hypnagogic state or sleep paralysis.
Mhm.
And that scares the living crap out of me. How do you overcome the fear of that? I mean, is it just
Yeah.
going down the stream, or any
Yeah, well, I
tips?
think that scares everyone, Steve. That's this inherently a frightening experience. For those who don't know, I mean, what happens is that when your body is sleeping, it goes into a state of paralysis so that you don't act out the behaviors and actions in your dreams, and otherwise you'd be banging into the walls and hitting things while you're sleeping, right? So this is sort of a protective measure that your body takes. And on rare occasions, sometimes when your mind wakes up, partially from the dream or fully from the dream, and you open your eyes and you can look around the room, you you're unable to move your body sometimes because it's still in that state of paralysis. Most people get extremely frightened and they struggle to move their body, and it doesn't really last very long. And usually they snap out of it after a couple of seconds, or at most a minute or so. So it's usually not something to be concerned about. But I have found that that the states of sleep paralysis can also be launching pads for out of body experiences or for lucid dream adventures. And you just have to really make an effort when it happens to train your mind to just tell yourself this is just, there's nothing to be scared of. There's just going to wake up in a short while. And this can be difficult because oftentimes we see threatening figures, menacing figures, sort of sometimes coming towards us, because we're still partially dreaming. It's very common, and what I suggest that people do is to shift your attention from the menacing figures, or from close your eyes and realize that when you try to move your body, even though your arms won't move, for example, if you really pay close attention, you'll realize that even though your physical arm isn't moving, something is moving. It's like an astral or a ghostly limb or a phantom limb that kind of moves as you try to move, your body or your arm. And if you pay attention to that, really pay attention to that, you can and make an effort to try to shift your sense of identity from your physical body to this dream or astral body. You can completely shift it, and it's totally possible. I've done this many times, and this then can become a launching pad where you can then as you identify more with the dream body or the astral body or ghostly body or whatever term you want to use for it, you can then lift yourself out of your physical body completely, roll yourself out or lift yourself out of it, and and you'll find yourself in your bedroom, but but not in your physical body, and oftentimes your bedroom will look just like your bedroom normally does, except there'll be something a little bit odd about it. Like maybe the door will be kind of in a different place, or the window will be in a different place, or there'll be an extra window, or something like that, or the furniture will be kind of differently arranged. So it seems more like this is a simulation of the room inside your mind, and you can then use this as a launching pad to walk out the front door and begin a lucid dream adventure.
Wow. Nature loves courage, right?
It sure does. It responds to courage, as Terence McKenna says. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Well, before we get to the end of our podcast, of course, this is a paranormal podcast, lucid dreaming, of course, paranormal, sleep paralysis, demons, the Hat Man, the whole 9 yards. But just even on the Natch, have you had any profound paranormal experiences in your life?
Yeah, I'd be happy to talk about. I want to say a few tips about lucid dreaming first, because I did mention that, and I really hope that some of your listeners have lucid dreams tonight. But getting into the habit of asking yourself, "Am I dreaming right now?" And taking a reality test, which is usually looking at a book, seeing what the words say, looking back, and in the waking reality, you'll find that those words remain constant, and in a dream they will change. And if you get into the habit of doing that throughout the day, that'll carry over into your dreams and often trigger a lucid dream. And another good technique is to set your alarm clock around 2 hours before you normally wake up, and move around the house a little bit, read a book, and then go back to sleep. And usually when you combine those techniques and think about lucid dreaming and talk about lucid dreaming, you'll tend to have one usually within a few weeks. And some of your listeners may have one just tonight, just from hearing about it today. So, but yeah, I'd love to talk about my paranormal experiences. That's one of the reasons I was happy to be on your show, is because I don't get a chance to talk about these very often. And I have had some extraordinary paranormal experiences that I just, conventional science would have a very difficult time explaining these things. Two synchronicities that I'd like to talk about. A synchronicity, as most of you know, is what Carl Jung termed a meaningful coincidence, a coincidence that happens that just doesn't seem like it could have happened by chance, and seems to also carry great personal significance or personal meaning. Um, my first synchronicity that was really mind blowing occurred years ago when I was working on my first book, Brainchild, and I was living in a cabin in the woods in the Santa Cruz Mountains at the time, and I was tripping on LSD, and and I wrote a letter to USA Today, the newspaper. It was about Amy Carter, Abby Hoffman's. I'm sorry, Amy Hoffman, Abby Hoffman's daughter, who was who was uh, who was protesting on her college campus about the CIA recruiting people there or something. And for some reason, I felt compelled to write a letter when I was tripping, and it was a short, little, brief, little thing like, rah rah, Amy, great work, protesting, and that's the American way, or something like that. And I mailed it off the next day to USA Today, and the USA, I think, is a daily paper, and I checked it every day for the following month to see if they printed my letter. Over a month I checked it, and looks like they didn't print it, so I just sort of gave up on that and didn't think that they were going to print the letter. Then around 3.5 months later, I got a package of mail from my mom. I was still getting mail back east at her house where I used to live, and there amongst all the letters and different circulars that advertisements and different things that I got in the mail. At the very bottom, there was a copy of USA Today. And, I couldn't understand why she sent me a copy of USA Today. But it suddenly occurred to me, I was almost going to throw it away. It suddenly occurred to me, oh, maybe she sent it to me because my letter is in the back, and that's why she sent it to me. So I opened it up to the, back of the section, the letters to the editor section, and look, and there, and lo and behold, there's my letter, right? And I'm like, wow, that's cool. They printed my letter, so that was cool. So I get on the phone and I call my mom, and I say, Mom, thanks so much for sending me that latest batch of mail. I really appreciate that. And also, especially thank you for sending me that copy of USA Today with my letter in it. I almost threw it away. You should have said something to me about it. So I didn't throw it away. I didn't know you were doing that. My mom goes to me, what are you talking about? And I was like, the copy of USA Today that you sent me with my letter in it. She goes, your letter in it? What are you talking about? And I go, didn't you know that my letter to USA Today was in the back of that paper? And she had no idea. And she had never sent me a copy of USA Today before. And she's never sent me a copy since. And I asked her why you sent me that. And she goes, oh, well, when you were here going to NYU, I used to see you reading it in the mornings. So I just thought you'd like to see the latest issue or something. So some intuition told her to send that to me, and she had no idea that my letter was in there. And that's just, one of those things. I just don't know how to explain that, because it just does not seem like a just, random coincidence to me. And the other synchronicity that I'd like to discuss is I have a Maine Coon cat that I've had now for about 3.5 years that I just love and adore. As you know, how attached we can get to our pets from the incredible bonds that we form with them. And me and my cat, Tiger Lily, or Tilly, I call her, we just have this amazing bond. And after I had Tilly for, almost a year, we moved into the new place that I'm living in now. And one night, on my birthday 2 years ago, at around 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, I was woken up by Tilly jumping on my bed and depositing a dying mouse on my bed. And I kind of screamed and kind of freaked out a little bit, and took the mouse outside, but then thanked Tilly, and then it kind of occurred to me. I was like, oh, people people often say that their cat will bring them a mouse or a bird as a gift to them, right? So I thought this was kind of that's kind of an interesting coincidence that it happened, on the night of my birthday, the morning of my birthday. And I thought that's kind of, interesting. But I thought that could have just been a coincidence. But, I told a number of people about it and they thought it was a pretty cute story, right? Well, he didn't bring me another mouse again until a year later. I was again sleeping, and again around 2 or 3 in the morning, um, I was suddenly woken up by Tilly jumping on my bed and depositing another dying mouse on my bed. And I woke up and I turned the light on and I was like, "Oh, Tilly, it happened again," And I took the mouse outside, and I thought my first thought was, "Oh, I guess I guess this can happen on other nights besides my birthday." And then it occurred to me it was my birthday. It was mind blowing. I had totally forgotten. I was like, "Oh my God, it happened again on my birthday." And these were the only 2 times in the past 3.5 years that she has ever brought me a dead mouse. And they both happened at exactly the same time, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning on my birthday. So how do you explain that, Steve? I just don't know. But it seemed like there was something else operating, and both of those occasions, like they were just winks or smiles from the universe, saying something, positive way, you're on the right track or something like that. But they were uncanny coincidences that I just don't know how to explain, except that there's some kind of magic inherent in the universe.
Yeah. I think the Egyptians worshiped cats as God for a reason.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They're uncanny. They have psychic powers. And amazing how they can know your emotions and know your feelings and be there for you when you need them.
Absolutely. Wow. I've seen plenty of pictures of your cat. A beautiful, beautiful cat.
Thank you. Yeah.
Um, Now, one thing I'm understanding is you do have an experience with something called the mysterious Earth lights. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, yeah. I'd love to talk about that experience. That's another one of these just mind-blowing experiences. This happened maybe around 15 or 20 years ago. It was quite a while ago. I was living in the Santa Cruz Mountains at the time, and my girlfriend was visiting, and my girlfriend and I were standing in my bathroom, and the lights were out in the bathroom, and we were standing there completely naked, and we were kissing in the bathroom. And we were kissing for a while, and I think I had my eyes closed initially, and then I noticed that there was like a light, on us. There was no shades on the window, and but it was dark out at night, and I felt that there was a light, and I opened my eyes, and I look out the window, and there is like what looks like somebody shining a very bright flashlight, maybe around 10 or 15 feet away, directly onto us. And I was like, what in the world? Why? So, I thought it must have been some kind of like mischievous teenager or somebody who came on the property, but we were living in a pretty remote location. And, it wasn't easy for somebody to get there. You could have only traveled there by car. And, this was already, after dark. And, it was a little bit concerning, why somebody is shining this flashlight on us, as we're standing there naked in the bathroom, right? And, as me and my girlfriend are looking out into this light, suddenly it starts rising up into the air, right? And it like rises up around 5, 10, feet into the air, and then it starts blinking, stroboscopically, and it just starts blinking. And then suddenly there's more lights. There's like suddenly different colored lights, red and blues and greens and oranges, and they're flashing all over the place and moving around, and orbs of light moving around. And they look like they have these bright orange lights with like a yellow lantern in the center of them. And they were just flashing like crazy. And it was mesmerizing and just absolutely wild to watch, what was going on. And it would almost seem like there was a sentience to it, like there was an intelligence to it, like it was communicating with us in some kind of way or something. It was just absolutely bizarre and just like this crazy wild psychedelic light show. And we stood there just watching this, and this went on for maybe what seemed like around 30 minutes to us. It seemed like it went on for about a half hour, and then it just very suddenly completely stopped, and it was just all dark, and there was nobody there and nothing there. And even actually at that point went out and opened the door, and there was nobody, nothing there. And then the weird thing was we climbed up into my loft afterwards, and instead of it being around 30 minutes, around 3.5 hours had gone by. And we just could not account for this other 3 hours. There was just this weird lost time that occurred with it. And we just had no explanation for why there was this strange lost time. And the next day, I asked my landlord, who I shared the property with, if they noticed any strange lights, that evening on the property. And they had no idea what I was talking about and hadn't noticed anything. And then around a month later, I was in a bookstore in downtown Santa Cruz, and like I said, I was doing research with Rupert Sheldrake, looking at unusual animal behavior prior to earthquakes, and I picked up a book on earthquakes, and I read this section on what are called earth lights. And apparently, in certain areas that are earthquake prone, like the area that I was living in, the Santa Cruz Mountains, in just normal crust of the earth, it contains a high percentage of quartz crystal, and in certain earthquake prone areas, it can be as high as 15%. And when you put pressure onto a quartz crystal, it can create what's called a piezoelectric effect, is the most common explanation for what people describe as earth lights. Because there's this, pressure in the earth crust, and when you put pressure on quartz crystal, it generates an electric charge. And some geologists believe that this may be an explanation for why people see these colored lights in earthquake-prone areas at certain times. So that seemed like a partial explanation for what it was that we experienced, but there was more to it. I mean, what else explained the fact that we had 3 hours of lost time, and why was there a bright light shining directly onto us at the beginning, like something was shining a flashlight directly on us, and what explained the sense that there was some kind of communication or some kind of sentience to this. So then as kind of just an addendum to the story, about a year later, I was talking to John Mack, the psychiatric researcher at Harvard, who was taking the alien abduction phenomena seriously. And when people report that they're abducted by aliens and brought aboard a spacecraft, and have these fascinating and hard to believe tales that aliens operated on them, well, John took these things very seriously. He's the author of the book Abduction, and I was interviewing him. I interviewed him twice. And I was interviewing him for my book, Conversations on the Edge of the Apocalypse. And during the interview, I recounted my story to him about the mysterious earth lights that I just told you. And he said to me, wow, I would love to, if you're ever in Massachusetts, and you're in the area, I'd love for you to come by, and we can put you into a hypnotic trance. And I'd love to see if there's more to this that you just don't remember, during that 3-hour period of lost time. Unfortunately, John Mack, was hit by an automobile when he was in London a few months later, and died before I was able to have that hypnotic regression period with him. But I still wonder to this day, what that was, because it was not only this incredible psychedelic light show of wild, changing stroboscopic lights, but also there was the odd attention that it seemed to pay directly to us. The focused light beam, and those mysterious lost hour, 3 hours of lost time. So still wonder today what it was that happened during that mysterious event.
Yeah, that is amazing. It's amazing what happened to Mr. Max too. I mean, that's wow.
Yeah.
It kind of makes, I mean, a lot of stories I hear about certain people passing away under those type of circumstances. So it makes you wonder, but hopefully it was just circumstantial.
Yeah, let's hope it wasn't premeditated by someone, because he was saying things that he shouldn't have been saying. He did have a lot of, after he came out and spoke about the experiences that he was exploring and researching with people who had alien abduction phenomena. There was a lot of friction with the Harvard University administration, and they actually told him to stop the research, and he actually had to get legal counsel, and they threatened to throw him out, and there was all this stuff that shouldn't have gone on, but it was almost reminiscent of what happened to Timothy Leary when he was at Harvard. But there were definitely people that didn't like what he was doing for some reason. Um, so we'll never know. But thank goodness his books are available in any bookstore. Abduction, and second one was called Passport to the Cosmos. They're both fantastic books, and they have incredible, mind blowing stories in them that people describe their encounters aboard these spacecrafts with aliens that appear to be operating on them or communicating with them, and there's an uncanny kind of similarity, between these different stories.
Yeah.
This was also a kind of a springboard for my latest book, which I can mention, which was just printed. It's not available for purchase yet. You can get it for pre-order in Traditions, but it's the illustrated field guide to the DMT entities, which looks at not only the alien, the different entities reported in the alien abduction phenomena, but also the fact that many people report alien or entity encounters during their DMT voyages. DMT, for people that don't know, is the active component in ayahuasca, the brew from the Amazon, the shamanic brew, and it's naturally found in the human body and naturally found in almost every mammal, not almost, in every mammal and almost every animal and almost every plant. It's just ubiquitous throughout the natural world, and no biochemist can tell you what function it serves in the body or anywhere else in nature. It's a profound mystery, but we do know that when it's injected or smoked, that it produces a psychedelic experience that has no equal. It's many times more intense than the most intense LSD or mushroom experience. And what's very common is that people report these entity encounters. It was first Terence McKenna described the self-transforming machine elves in his lectures, and then Rick Strausman in his research at the University of New Mexico for 5 years. He also he said something like 50% of the people that they were given DMT to also reported this, and this is described in his book, DMT, the Spirit Molecule, which is absolutely brilliant and mind-blowing book that I highly recommend. And so maybe around 15 years ago, my good friend Sarah Finn Huntley, who's a brilliant artist, and I were tripping together one night in the Santa Cruz Mountains, and we were talking about this strange phenomena that people report with these entity encounters, and how people often report the same entities, how similar they were. And we got this idea, wouldn't it be fun to do a field guide, kind of like those nature field guides that they have to reptiles and amphibians, or to non-flowering plants and fungi, or different parts of the natural world where they have descriptions of the different species, and then illustrations to go with them. Wouldn't it be fun to do a book like this with the DMT entities? And she got excited about it, and I got excited about it, and we talked about doing it for years. And during that interim, when we were talking about it, there still wasn't that many people that were really doing DMT. It was still a pretty obscure drug. That only kind of very sophisticated psychedelic aficionados were aware of, and since then there's been just this incredible resurgence of interest in the DMT experience. And if you look online and search for it, there's just many hundreds of reports that people have posted online, and it's become so much of interest that they're even doing studies now at the where's the Imperial College in England and in Colorado and in Switzerland and elsewhere to look at how people fare and doing these DMT excursions for extended states for longer periods of time than the 5 or 10 minutes that it normally lasts before you come down, and extend it into, a half an hour, or several hours or longer to see if there can really be this kind of sustained contact with these entities and what we can learn from them and what kind of information we can bring back. And they're taking this very seriously. Andrew Gallimore and David Luke and others are really looking into this. So Sarah and I, finally thought this is the time to do this book. So, I began writing the descriptions of the different entities, like the self-transforming machine elves, the octopus-like entities, what are some of the jester, the clowns, the reptilians, some of the most commonly encountered DMT entities. And then Sarah did illustrations of each one of them. And we put them together in this absolutely beautiful and wonderful book that was just published by Inner Traditions. And I think it's probably besides Dreaming Wide Awake, I think it's my best book. So I'm excited about that coming out as well.
Absolutely. Well, David, thank you very much for coming on this podcast. It is an absolute honor. Aside from the book David was just mentioning, please check out his latest book, Psychedelics in the Coming Singularity. And I don't know what else to say other than embrace the absurd and free your mind, and your ass will follow. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.